Hi everybody and welcome back to my channel. It's Russell with Ink and Paper Blog. How are you doing today? I hope you are doing very, very well. I hope you had a great weekend. Sunday is wrapping up. It's the middle of the afternoon here, but I know some people are already asleep, ready for Monday, and some people are still a little bit earlier than me, so it all works out in the long run. I hope you guys got some good reading in, and I hope you're super excited to talk about our book club choice for the month of September. I know I'm sneaking it in there on the last day of the month, but we are going to be talking about Standard Deviation by Katherine Heiny, which we read over the month of September for our debut novels you may have missed book club. If you are new to my book club, the way that this will work is the first 10 minutes or so will be spoiler free, and then I will remind you of the book club for next month, and then I will count you out, and then we'll talk about some spoilers in the second half of the video. Now, Standard Deviations was a little bit different for us, right? Because, you know, I normally don't read anything that has a sense of humor, but this book did have, you know, a comedy aspect to it, which we'll talk about in a little bit more detail. But what is the basic storyline? So this is the story of Graham, and the book is told from Graham's perspective. Graham is married to Audra, and they have a 10-year-old son named Matthew. Now, Matthew is diagnosed and has Asperger's, and that is definitely something that is dealt with and discussed in the novel. And basically what this book is about relationships. It's a lot about infidelity, different types of infidelity at the romantic level, at the friendship level, at the group core level, and that's sort of the theme that goes through. What the book sort of starts with is this idea. Graham had an affair. He was married to Elspeth, who we meet very soon at the beginning of the book, when he had an affair with Audra, left her and married Audra. And they've been married, I think, for about, it's about like 13 years or so. I can't exactly remember the date. At the beginning of the book, Graham is in line at a deli, I believe, and runs into Elspeth. And then he has his wife put in a good word in a building where Elspeth wants to get an apartment. We learn very quickly that Audra is sort of like this busy bee. She knows a little bit about everybody. She's one of those people, we all have them in our life, who talks to everyone, gets sort of everyone in the world's backstory, and then she has an amazing, uncanny ability to remember everyone and connections and stuff like that. The book takes place in New York, and the Audra and Graham live in an apartment. Audra's best friend lives on the third floor, and this is really about all the different relationships that come through Graham's life. Graham is our major narrator, and we definitely learn about other people through his perspective alone. What happens is, basic plot is that Audra helps Elspeth get the apartment, and then they sort of work to develop a friendship. A lot of different things go on. I don't want to give too much away, but basically different people come in and out of Graham's life, and relationships are built, and different things happen that either continue those relationships forward or change those relationships on their surface. Now, Matt is actually a fantastic character. So he's about 10 years old through the course of the book, and he does have Asperger's. The book goes into many of the different sort of idiosyncratic things that he has going on that he needs to do in order to make himself feel comfortable. But his major point is that he folds origami. That is sort of his centering point at the start of the book, and it brings other people into Graham and Audra's life as well. Friends from school, friends from an origami club, parents of students, and all that kind of stuff. So on the front of the book, you see these little origami dogs. I think that is sort of the premise is that Matt underlies the relationship between Audra and Graham. Now, Graham is about 10 years older than Audra, so there's that dynamic. Clearly, it's a relationship that started as an affair, which we learn very, very early in the book, so that is not a spoiler. And I think it's actually on the blurb as well. And so there's sort of always that tension of a relationship that starts as an affair. How is that going to work out over the long term? What I love, if you guys are looking for a book that is really about how parents love their child, Graham and Audra do amazing things for their son. They really want him to have a life where he feels comfortable and he gets what he needs to not only be successful, but be happy. And they do all sorts of really interesting stuff. He joins an origami club, and we learn about the people that are in that club and how he's 10, he's years different than the people in that club, but the dynamics of what he could have to deal with as he grows older. They go to an origami festival or a conference, which I didn't even know was a thing, but that is really well done as far as their support for their son and his passion. And then he has these friends also that come in, and what I really love about it is they all have some sort of specialness to them. Like, for example, there's one character named Manny that won't eat anything but white foods on a white plate. So things like that sort of make you smile. There is definitely a sense of humor. The book is really well written. In fact, it's very readable. You definitely, I did have a few issues getting into it in the first few pages, but once I sort of got with the flow, completely easy to read. Graham is a very compelling character. And I really liked the story and the family and everything. Now, I said in the beginning, the theme of this book is infidelity. And all of the characters, and I mean every single character in some way deals with infidelity. And that is probably my biggest sort of, I don't want to say it's an issue, because I didn't mind the story arc or how it worked out, but it sort of hits you over the head over and over and over and over again with the theme. So I would say that I felt like it was a little bit too much. There's a lot of people who get cheated on. There's a lot of relationships that go sour because of infidelity. And I understand that that is part of the world, but I just couldn't imagine that Graham would have this many people in his life dealing with the same thing. But what I did appreciate is Matthew does not deal with infidelity at the relationship romantic level, but he does deal with it at a 10-year-old friend level, which I thought was really well done. We have all remember that friend we had that was our best friend, and then all of a sudden it wasn't our best friend. Something changed. Parents didn't understand. We don't understand. As children, I think the stress of those types of relationships. I thought that what Katherine does in this book really well is just describe the world and how relationships change and how they can be truncated by factors that are outside your control. She really does tell a very lovely story, though, about Graham and Audra and the ups and downs of a relationship. Now, Elspeth comes back, and I want to be honest, I think Elspeth is absolutely my favorite character in the book because she is this very tight, put together woman. She's a lawyer. There's a description in the book that she always wears high heels, even when she's home. Like when she dresses down, she's still wearing high heels in her house. And there's like these comments about how she would vacuum the house in high heels. I totally pictured a blonde Lilith from Cheers and Frasier, if you guys are looking for sort of the person in your head. For me, there was a connection there because I sometimes feel like I can be very, very rigid in how I run my life. And so I felt some connections to Elspeth and how she ran her life. Her story is interesting, and it's all from the perspective of two people. Graham, because he had a relationship with her prior, and Audra, because she draws information out from people, right? That's who she is and who she's developed to be. So I thought that was really well done. I really liked this book. It's a solid read. I think the story is good. I think the characters are good. For me, the theme was a little bit heavy-handed. So by the time the end rolled around, I was just kind of tired. I think some of it maybe could be taken out. And because like there's even one character, and I won't tell you who it is, who deals that we are put on notice of it, but it's sort of dropped. Like it's never gone back to. It's just like, let's add this one additional character to the whole thing. And so for me, that was really the only problem with it. I laughed out loud at times. I really thought that Matthew, Elspeth, Graham, and Audra were real, relatable, true characters. I could totally picture who they were and where they would be. I recommend reading this book. If you like sort of a encapsulated family drama, but also with a sense of humor. I think if you like Jonathan Troper, you would like this book. Stuff like that. It doesn't have the sense of tragedy that like a Billy Clegg book does or something like that. So I highly recommend it. I'm going to count you out. I just want to remind you, if you are going to turn the thing off, next month's book, so for October, we're going to be reading Disoriental by Negar Djavadi, out by Europa Editions. This cover, you guys, so good. Now this one is a little bit longer, so give yourself a little bit more time. We will be discussing this by the end of October. I hope a lot of people pick this up. I've heard nothing but amazing things. I know it deals with all sorts of themes that I think we're going to have a ton to talk about. So remember, October's book is Disoriental by Negar Djavadi. Perfect. Okay, so I'm counting you out, and if you are leaving now, I'll talk to you guys next time. So spoilers in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, so where do we start with the spoilers? Let's talk about Graham's relationship with Elspeth. I thought that it was a little bit, you saw it coming, did you not? I thought you did, that he was going to become friends with her and then be enticed back to her. I thought this sort of comparison of his first wife and his second wife was interesting, but then became a little bit predictable. But I thought what was really interesting is that Katherine Heiny talks about what Graham loved about his first wife and compares it to Audra, his second wife, and he sort of misses the quiet control that is his first wife, because I think that's who he is more as a person. I thought it was really interesting that Audra had no fear of them becoming friends again, even though she broke up their marriage. She doesn't appear, or Graham doesn't recognize that she has any fear that the reversal could occur. And as you see them become friends later in the novel, when he's trying to escape the little boy and grandfather who come over, and sort of the plan comes that he's going to wind up going to the hotel and probably sleeping with Elspeth. You saw it coming, but you also, I thought what she did really well is sort of this idea that he's juggling in his head, do I want to do this? Now the question comes down as, he gets to the hotel, he doesn't have her room number, so he's sitting there, and he sees her walk in, and she she checks in and she goes upstairs. If he had known her hotel room, if she had already been checked in, I wonder, and I think this is part of the brilliance, if he would have just gone upstairs, or if it was that sitting down in that chair and waiting for her that truly put the doubt in his mind. I thought that was very well done. And I think that we all, this is sort of a generalization, but we compare our current relationships to our past relationships. I think that is not uncommon. And I think sometimes we realize that there were parts of the past relationship that we were fond of, or we don't have in our current relationship that we wouldn't mind having. But what Katherine did so well in this juxtaposition is she makes you realize that Graham needs Audra. He needs her spontaneity, her lack of control, because she adds sort of the flavor to the life that he has learned to love and lead. He is also, she's the mother of the son that there's no doubt in this book that Graham loves his son. We'll talk about that in a minute, but I think what's really great is that Katherine allows sort of these different relationships. And then what's interesting is we don't get it from Audra's perspective, but Audra sort of starts seeing this guy, Jacob, and sort of there's this interest in whether or not she was going to have an affair. Now we think that they never had any sort of sexual contact. It was more of an emotional affair. But we know from Graham's perspective that there's been sort of a wall between them. At the start of the book, he kind of lets that know that there's sort of this weird sort of gap going on. What was really interesting is that she stops herself, right? And comes back. His reaction to that situation is really interesting, right? Because he can then be compared to how Elspeth responded when he left his wife for this other woman. And the way he responds, you kind of, there's a hypocrisy to it, right? You did this once as Sawyer yourself, and it's not even as bad as what you did. So I thought that that was a really interesting discussion about this idea. And because we're only getting Graham's perspective, we're left to believe that Audra realized that her relationship with her family is more important than the affair. There's another book there, right? There's another side to that story that she leaves just open enough that we can have a conversation about it. The second thing I want to talk about in a bit of detail is Matthew, the son. I really thought that it's really well done how Katherine discusses how parents with children who have something like Asperger's love their children, want to create a safe space and hope the best for them. But this idea of their child being normal versus being who they are. And I use the word normal in quotation marks because I think that Matthew is Matthew. And I think that that's what the book discusses, is that they don't really want to change Matthew. And Audra does the best at talking about that when she feels like they may be having the second baby that's sort of going on, and how she articulates that she would never change Matthew, even though there was so much. And Graham points out all of the troubles that they had with him, right? As a child, she feels like a child that didn't struggle like Matthew, or doesn't have the things in his life that make him special like Matthew, would not be as lucky as Matthew. And I thought that was beautiful, as Audra never treats Matthew different than any other child. She loves her son for all of his idiosyncratic issues, and it's just very loving and very inclusive. But Katherine, you know, allows us sort of this other side as Graham just sort of, you know, wrestles with what I would assume. I don't have an autistic child. I do have an autistic younger brother who I think is 27 now. And I know a lot of the struggles that he dealt with, and sort of the, you wish he didn't have to deal with this. But I don't think it's ever you would change who they are. It's that you just wish that they didn't have to deal with the things that sort of set them off or make them uncomfortable. And there are so many examples of how this family helps Matthew through those situations, which I thought was really lovely. Now, Matthew's relationships with other children is also well done, because, you know, he struggles to create relationships. And when he does get his friendships, and when they don't go the way they want to, or when things sort of go sour, from Graham's perspective is that heartache for the father for his child, right? But you also, she does just enough to give you the heartache from the point of view of Matthew, which I thought was, it's really tender and sweet. Overall, I really enjoyed the book. I thought it was really a well-told story. And I enjoyed all of the characters. I do think there's, as I said before, I think there are too many side stories. I didn't need the story. For example, Bitsy, the woman who lives with her before, and they know that her husband cheated on her, and she kind of only plays like this sort of babysitter role in the beginning and sort of pops up later. I don't know that that was necessary. I don't know that we needed to know that, was his name Clayton, the leader of the Origami Club, that he had an affair at the conference. I mean, it didn't go anywhere. They didn't tell Pearl, his wife. They didn't go. It just was like, oh, everyone's a cheater? I don't know. So I thought those stories, I really liked Julio. I think is Julio, the guy who lives with them for off and on, and how he just sort of incorporates himself and becomes part of the family, which I thought was really cool. There was just a little bit, I didn't need the part about the dog that came to visit. It just was a little bit excessive. But overall, the story is compelling. The ideas are well thought out. It is heart-wrenching and also very touching. And it ends with sort of a sense of family, which I think there's not that many books out there that I've read this year, because you guys know me, I don't read that many happy books. But this book left me with a happy thought. So I really enjoyed it. Would you recommend this book? What did you guys think? You know, I only do 20-minute videos on this because I really want to keep it condensed, but there's a lot to talk about in this book. What did you think of Graham? What did you think of Audra? What did you think of Matthew? What did you think of Elspeth? What did you think of all of these factors? I want to know. Tell me in the comments below. As always, if you are a return subscriber and a return book clubber, thank you so much. If you're new to my channel, well, I hope this is a great first video and you'll join in our next book club. Well, we'll be reading Disoriental by Negar Djavadi, out by Europa cover. And until next time, happy reading. I'll talk to you later and we'll talk soon. Bye.